Just give me a soundbite of what the next challenge is for you.
For me, the next challenge is the final challenge I need to complete, a world record attempt, and it's actually an expedition to the North Pole, geographic North Pole.
The battles you've got to climb the mountain, to do the kayaking, is physical. But what are you fighting in here?
It sort of pulled me out of that rut, sort of opened up this whole world of discovery for me, and sort of being able to build that self-confidence, build that self-esteem, and that was really huge for me.
When you think, what does it take to ski to the North Pole or ski to the South Pole? You're completely on your own, you're dependent on yourself. You've got nobody else to look up to. There's a lot of parallels with going through life with neurodiversity, and I think it gives me a huge competitive advantage.
How many people don't manage to find that sort of flow you found, the challenges that you enjoyed, flourishing in career, choosing the next challenge that's, there's people that are spectacularly lost.
Can I ask one question, because I think we're going to wrap up for time. Do you feel any shame for having ADHD?
Phil, looking forward to this conversation.
Me too, and I'm really delighted to have these two guys with us in the studio today. Archie and Nick, you're both incredibly welcome with a great story to tell. Start with you, if I can. You're the greatest explorer I've ever met. You're the maddest man I've ever bumped into. Just give me a soundbite of what the next challenge is for you.
For me, the next challenge is the final challenge I need to complete, a world record attempt, and it's actually an expedition to the North Pole, geographic North Pole.
Brilliant.
as you do. As you do. And the one after that?
After that, in July of next year, 25, I'm competing in an event called the Yukon 1000. That's a 1,000-mile kayak race, longest kayak race in the world, starting in northern Canada, going up through the Arctic Circle and finishing in Alaska.
So I'm going to come back to the madness that is your life in a minute.
I have so many questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Archie, where do you fit into this? We're having a conversation about ADHD, sort of beyond the label. Tell everybody just very quickly where you fit in.
So obviously I have ADHD and autism as well. Diagnosed at 16, so quite late in terms of, not obviously as late as you, Nick. I know you were diagnosed in adulthood. But as I was coming into my GCSEs, A-levels, and I often felt I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. Was sort of stuck in a little bit of a rut, and I was going to say, I then met you, Phil, and that's when the world of ADHD opened up to me. And since then, it's been a wild roller coaster, but one that I'm sort of hanging on for joy with. And I'm now at a stage slightly more mundane than you, Nick, but finishing my degree, as well as working full-time at ADHD 360 as well. So I'm sort of, like I say, slightly more mundane, but still my own challenges and victories to come up with as well.
Well, when we spoke about who to have in this interview, I wanted two inspirational people. Nick, you're inspirational in terms of the adventures and everything you do and stand for. And Archie, what were you, 22 now?
Yeah.
Full-time degree, full-time job, nailing them both, been promoted twice at work, senior position with great responsibilities. I think that's inspirational in itself. It's not mundane at all. And that's the first thing we need to level out. That's not mundane in terms of an achievement for someone who's neurotypical. That's one hell of an achievement, isn't it?
100%. Were you struggling before you ultimately met Phil and then had the whole kind of realization of ADHD, going for tests and so on?
I was
struggling because you only know what you know, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was struggling, but I didn't know I was struggling. I think that's probably the best way to put it. I felt like I was stuck in a rut. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and that was more to do with a lack of self-confidence, a lack of self-esteem. And so to the point where I'd just finished my GCSEs, and I was at the stage where I don't even want to do A-levels because I was so scared of failing in the education environment. And university was never on the cards for me. I never thought I would ever do that. Didn't think I was smart enough. So what I then, obviously then I met Phil, and it sort of pulled me out of that rut, sort of opened up this whole world of discovery for me, and sort of being able to build that self-confidence, build that self-esteem, and that was really huge for me.
So he was lucky to meet you, and you're absolutely right, the inspiration and the love, if you like, that's there. But how many kids don't get that?
Oh, absolutely. And if I take us back, and I think this will relate to you as well, you were with me when somebody rang, and this person on the other end of the phone who was seeking help from the organisation, from 360, said, I'm an A grade conversationalist and a C, a D grade in exams on the same subject. And that's when I realised I've got a problem. And that's one of the things that resonated with you, wasn't it? And you're nodding there. You know, we other people we've talked to in this series, how the struggle to actually apply yourself to our current academic processes doesn't represent the wealth of knowledge, intellect and capability that someone has. Gone that you're nodding. Let's just pick that up with you for a second. What was school like for you?
Do you know, I'm going to steal your phrase. It was a struggle, but I didn't realise it was a struggle back then. And if I can come back to my school reports, they were quite black or white. The teacher loved me or hated me. And you could look at these reports. So things like sciences, I enjoyed. I had a passion for sport, PE, glowing reports. When you moved into the more arts-based, the pottery, the art, the written, the essay-based topics, you know, you'd think, yeah, I was a child of low intelligence and a problem child. It's quite extraordinary. So, and that's really been the story of my life, and the learning from that is, I'm more comfortable if I'm doing something I enjoy and I can get caught up in. I feel good and I perform well, but you put me in that other environment and it just doesn't work out for me or the other people involved.
Interesting way you say for the other people involved as well, because of course the teachers, the other peers, the other people around you, relationships. If you're not in a happy space, in a good space, that's gonna filter out, isn't it? Quite magnificently put, I think.
Yeah, really well articulated. I was interested in the fact that you've got these incredible challenges coming up. You've already done some challenges that would be beyond so many people. How much of that is mental strength? And what I mean by that is the battles you've got to climb the mountain, to do the kayaking is physical. But what are you fighting in here?
Yeah, so if we generalise them as ultra endurance events that are uncomfortable, that are going to push you physically and mentally to the limit, what is the limiting factor? It's all in the head. Everything is in the head. But having had ADHD, and particularly during the era where it was not diagnosed, I was left to manage to cope with that throughout my life. And there's a form of suffering involved in that. And looking back, I think I became very good at suffering. Because when you think, what does it take to ski to the North Pole or ski to the South Pole? You're completely on your own. You're dependent on yourself. You've got nobody else to look up to. It's uncomfortable. There's a lot of parallels with going through life with neurodiversity. And I think it gives me a huge competitive advantage. And in the expedition world, one of the greatest signs of respect of an individual is, can they suffer? You know, this is John. As an introduction, John can suffer. Everybody in the community go, yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah, he's good at suffering. It's a sign of respect. But yeah, I can't think of any real better training ground learning for that than negotiating life with a condition you don't even know you have.
And that's resilience, right? Which is actually, you know, it's huge. Yeah. And what we're trying to talk about in terms of learning that learning that from a young age where the neuro patterns are being formed. And, you know, clearly you're physically strong, you prioritise that. But you mentioned about the diagnosis. Did you struggle to channel that before you were diagnosed? Were you fighting that whole, I don't really understand myself? And when you were diagnosed, did that form more of a picture for you that you could understand your behaviour?
Yeah, it's really interesting now being able to look back on my life. And I'm still processing it. How was that experience? I did all these various things. Why did I do them? And now it makes a lot of sense. A lot of my life has been a form of self-medication. Right from an early age, exercise, being outdoors was not just important to me, it was critical for my well-being. And in fact, I was chatting to my parents just this weekend. They said, when you were younger, you used to, 8, 9, 10 years old, you'd go out for a walk at 11 o'clock at night and come back in 2 o'clock in the morning. You're out for 3 hours, just my headphones on. Now that's weird, right? But for me, I needed at the end of a day a period of time to process and everything that had happened, to be able to then come down to a sort of state of homeostasis, relax, sleep, etc. But I didn't know why I needed those things. Now what I realise is that was my medicine. That was the yin and the yang that carried through carried me through my life. Yes, there's so many patterns looking back. I was doing things, they were a bit odd, they were a bit peculiar, but now I'm really comfortable with that because I was doing the best I could, and I was coping, I was managing with using everything I had available to me at that point in time.
What about you with that? You're sort of less of a life in terms of years to look back on, but so when Nick was talking about suffering, you know, and what you've been through, you and doing things differently, you know, what did they call you when you used to go to your sister's running club?
They used to call me Rocket Read.
Rocket Read, and why was that?
Well, to provide some context, I would have been about 5 or 6, and my sister was about 4 or 5 years older than me, and she used to do a cross-country running club, and I wasn't able to stand still and watch my sister do the running, so I used to join in with them at 5 or 6, and I'd be running around the cross-country track and often beating them, and I was being told that they were wanting me to join them in a few years because I was too young at the time to be involved with it. But like I say, I couldn't be still, and I didn't realise that was hyperactivity at the time. I just wanted to run. But I love doing it. I mean, sport, like I say, is a huge therapy for me in a way. Name a sport, I probably played it, watched it, or enjoyed it. And rugby was my main sport. And I used to play rugby 2-3 times a week and loved it. But like I say, I was a completely different person on the rugby pitch compared to what I'd be like sat in the classroom. In the classroom, I was really reserved and unsure of myself, really. Whereas on the rugby pitch, I sort of came alive. I was going to say I was the captain of one of my teams, and I was a vocal leader. And like I say, just something about being outside, doing the exercise, playing a sport that I love just sort of opened me up a little bit. And I became this sort of extroverted, sort of excitable leader within the team. And that was a huge thing for me.
There's a story in your life where you were on the rugby pitch and the referee made a decision that you didn't agree with. How did you tackle that decision? Do you remember?
I went very confidently at it. I mean, rugby as a sport is about a sport of respect, and the referee is someone that you respect. And so I wanted to be respectful, but I was very confident and very articulate in the way that I was expressing my concerns about the decision that had been made. And I was going to say, I remember it, I don't think he overturned the decision, but it was something that I would never have been able to do in any form of life anywhere else. But to be that articulate, be that confident, and I was going to say, but still have the respect as well. And
you kind of stole my line there, because there you were in your happy place, somewhere that brought you joy, where you were having a dopamine rush by the exercise, the stimulation of the game. And you became someone else that was able to. Could you have made that challenge in that articulate way at school with a teacher?
No, not a chance. No, I'd been in my shell, not wanting to come out. I'd avoid any form of confrontation in school. I was purposely trying not to be that disruptive, naughty kid, and a lot of masking went on within the classroom. But similar to you, Nick, I had teachers that understood me though and got me, and in those classrooms and those sort of subjects I really enjoyed, and I sort of thrived within those classrooms. So even then, even though I didn't know I had ADHD, they were sort of tailoring their sort of the way that they approached me and the way that they dealt with me to sort of help support me with my ADHD, even though I didn't know it then.
The word there for me was understood, because I was about to say both of you could have been misunderstood and could be in life with different actions you've done. So pay attention. The teacher saying it to you in class. The teacher could ultimately be thinking you're being rude, you're not interested. And then if you channel what you do, you task yourself to take on crazy challenges, things that might not have been done before, hence a world record. But then there's probably things that you're totally uninspired with and don't want to get involved in. And if you're being forced to do that from society, how many people don't manage to find that sort of flow you found, the challenges that you enjoyed flourishing in career, choosing the next challenge that's there's people that are spectacularly lost. Yeah, they don't know how to embrace this whole thing.
And for both of these guys, I think there's a bit of serendipitous luck involved that's been a life changer. You and I have talked before, Nick, about you've got that ADHD classic I will go and do this. I am going to do this. I am driven, motivated. This is my time. I will do this. But your awareness of your ADHD and your treatment for your ADHD now means that you plan this a lot better, and you plan for success. And I don't think that was ever more evident than when you rode the Atlantic. The planning you were able to put into that was beyond what you'd have done pre-treatment. Would that be fair?
Yeah, definitely. And that's what the treatment has given me is, well, it's given me so much, but in terms of overall achievement, it's given me the ability to tackle the mundane pile that sits beneath all these public performances, these great shows. Yeah, it's the admin, which is a huge part of an expedition, bigger than most people would realise. And that's what people wouldn't see about me, is I would be working 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. Most Christmas days in my past, I have worked myself. Christmas Day, I would go to work because I had this disadvantage, but I also had a passion, you know, and I think this is really important if you've got a neurodiversity, you've got ADHD, is you can get caught up in this mundane part. It can start to define your life, your confidence, your self-esteem goes down. So for me, I make sure I've got something I'm doing that aligns with my passion, my skills, my capabilities, because I know then that's not just I'm going to perform well, but it's going to give me the self-esteem and the confidence to be able to manage these weaker areas of my life, to be able to say, okay, I'm not good at that, but this is the big prize, this is the big picture, and use that to find a way. Previously, I would try and recruit other people, friends, family, etc., to take that load off me. What the medication has allowed me to do is actually face it and smash through it myself. It's given me that sort of independence as well, another string to my bow. Yeah, the best way I can explain that, Phil.
Brilliantly put. I'm going to take you back to your GCSEs, if I may. Your mum would tell the story of you going up to your bedroom to do 2 hours revision. And I remember watching you in an interview with Adam, do you remember? Yeah. And the two guys were talking about when they went up to their bedroom. You tell me what happened.
So I go up to my bedroom with every intention of revising, and I'd look at the first page of the textbook or whatever I was looking at, and I would stare at that first page for 2 hours, almost paralysed with, I don't know what it was, but I'd be paralysed just staring at this first page. And it would come to a point that I'd then come downstairs and after that 2 hours, and my mum would say, "How's your revision gone, Archie?" And I'd say, "Yeah, it's gone really well. I've looked at this, and this." And what I didn't realise, that whole thing was part of the rejection sensitivity dysphoria, about not wanting to make someone else angry or upset with my actions. So I would say, yes, I've had a really good, solid study session, and I'd even be able to come up with and saying, I've learnt this, and this. Even though I hadn't, I just stared at that first page of the textbook, and I like I say, I was fortunate enough to be able to coast through my GCSEs without doing any revision or anything like that. And I mean, I got the majority C's and B's, but I think if I was being treated at that stage, what it could have been, I could have been an AA star student, and that's.
Maybe how do you explain that to your mum, though, right? So anyone watching this, that's exactly where I wanted to go with this. Like, I've got 2 teenage daughters who quite possibly have got ADHD, and I know, and this is where I'm learning so much from these conversations. I was very similar to that. I'd go up every intention to revise, and I just didn't happen. I get distracted with thinking about something else, and I do it with reading as well. I'll be reading a book, and then my mind goes elsewhere. So you got through your exams.
Yeah.
Something got you through, but ultimately, as we've already said, you then met Phil, and you had the whole, what advice would you give to someone that's watching this that may not even be a teenager? They might be 25, 35 and think, that's me.
I mean, advice, I was going to say, I think first thing is try and understand yourself a little bit more, saying, right, so these are my strengths and these are my weaknesses. And if you find that you're one of those people that struggle with that admin side of things, or doing revision or whatever it is understand that, and then not be afraid to have the conversation with the people around you, saying, right, this is something I really struggle with. Can we do something that would help me with that? And for lots of people, that might be different things. I mean, one thing I find really useful is body doubling. So I have someone sitting alongside might be doing their own piece of work, and I'd be sat alongside doing my piece of work, just being sat with each other it's almost like that accountability element. So I know they're doing their piece of work, so I need to be doing my piece of work. And it's almost like a unspoken contract that you have
There's
with
accountability.
it. Yeah, there is. And that's something I find really useful, is that body doubling. And I still do it now with a lot of my uni work and my assignments at uni. And I find that really, really useful.
Yeah. There's a vulnerability conversation there. Four guys around the table, could be with pints, it could be the pub, right? 10, 20, 30 years ago, there would be very little vulnerability, in my opinion. And I'm 47, so enough perspective to think that when I was growing up with friends and relating it to you, dare I say, not knowing how to even explain that to your mum, let alone have a chat with any friends. Is that changing? Is that something that's probably just an open conversation? It feels like vulnerability is a strength now in men.
I think men are becoming more allowed to be vulnerable by society's norms. And I think if we look for any positive out of the pandemic, I think mental well-being, and you are allowed now, I think, a lot more to express, I'm not completely happy with what I am, who I am, what mood I'm in. And I think the pandemic has brought mental well-being to the front, because although the pandemic was very much a physical health thing, of course, everybody suffered with their mental ill health at some stage of the pandemic, didn't they? And it's allowed us more to talk. But I think blokes, and blokey blokes as well, look at them both, to be able to talk. Well, it's a fact, isn't it? Rugby playing teenager.
We moved us out of that.
Yeah.
Blokey
I
blokes.
did say blokey blokes, these two. But we should be proud to explore male vulnerability and be able to talk about it. And when you were talking about then struggling to get going on the studies and what have you, you nearly nodded your head off at that point, didn't you? And then telling your mum that you'd done it and getting away with that you're still smiling now, aren't you? That obviously resonates with you, doesn't it?
Well, I think this is it. You with ADHD, you're a highly sensitive individual, and the other thing you don't, certainly talking about myself, I don't want to let people down. So I'm in a situation where there's an expectation on me to do whatever it may be. But as you described it, if you've got ADHD and you're sitting down and someone says, right, I need your attention, or I need you to do this piece of admin, it's something that's boring as could be, you can't do it. It's hard to articulate to somebody without ADHD when the blocks come in, how immovable those blocks are. It's really quite invisible, but it's there. So yeah, I would do the same thing. And you're almost getting to the point where you're lying, because you're embarrassed about your situation. So you're forced to then, oh no, it's all okay, I've done it. And you're thinking in your mind, I'll do it later, I'll do it
the
then.
misunderstood bit.
Yeah, it is. This is not the manual.
Get you into trouble.
This is not in the manual. This isn't
No.
inattention, impulsivity and hyperactivity. This is the real world of ADHD.
Yeah, because this is ultimately, Nick trying to achieve a mission he wants to do. This is exams that you could argue you want to pass, but then there's someone that is misunderstood, that gets on the wrong side of the law, going back to your background and so on. And it's actually from a deeper reason that they don't want to and can't explain. They may not even understand it themselves. And then if you've masked it with drugs, alcohol, all sorts of other things, you're in trouble, right?
Absolutely. I'm going to take you to university assignments.
Yeah.
How exciting are they for you?
Oh, there was Dawes Ditchwater there. I don't like doing. I mean, I really enjoy the learning and learning about the stuff that I then have to do the assignment on. But then to write it down and do a 3,000, 4,000 word essay, it's like torture for me.
And how's that gone?
So I had struggled with it. It's got to the point where I've missed deadlines and stuff like that. And this is after being medicated, and this is after having all the support that I've had. And I think for me, university was it's really unique in the sense that for me, it's the first time in my life I've gone out on my own. You don't have you do have support and scaffolding within school. You get told which lessons you need to be at what time, you have to be there. You then get given a lesson plan all the way through. You're then told you need to do this exact piece of homework. You go out into university, it's all about independent study. And that's something I've never had to do before. And that was something that I really, really struggled with. And then I started working with a coach who specialises in working with university students, because there's a huge gap in support, I think, for university students. And she's really helped me, whether that's with just general coaching and sort of talking through struggles in my general life, or even the idea I now, before when I get an assignment, what I do is I speak with her and we plan out day by day, right, so I'm going to do this work and I'm going to do this many words and this is what I need to get done. I do body doubling sessions with her, and she's been amazing in terms of supporting me to be able to get through this university journey, because it's not been easy. So I was going to say, so even though I was medicated, even though I'm stable and optimized on my medication and I've had such amazing support, it's not a silver bullet. It doesn't stop it. And that's why
you've got coping mechanisms and you've got positive habits that you've identified work for you. And I imagine that's exactly the same for you, whether that's building up to a challenge or on the challenge itself, right? You've got to find what works for you.
Yeah, I mean, in Expedition Board, it all starts for me with, okay, what is the challenge? It's got to be something that I'm up for. That's got that sort of gut, exciting feel. Because I know if it's that, then I will find a way of getting there. If it's something I don't have that intrinsic motivation to do, it's going to fall on its butt.
Well, in the hard times, going back to how resilient, you must be the most resilient person we've ever met, right? And when there's going to be hardship, whether it's in here or physically, and then you've got to want it.
The most resilient man I probably have ever met, yet still incredibly vulnerable.
Yeah, which is...
And you don't normally put those two words in the same person, do you?
You can feel it as well.
Yes. Yeah. Do you know, it's a paradox. And ADHD resilience at me as an adventurer, yeah. The perception of me is a highly resilient individual. And actually, I guess now I'm able to look at myself, yes, that's true. But let's share what goes on beneath the surface as well. If you've got ADHD, certainly if I'm sharing my life, it's been a hard life. You're overcoming obstacle after obstacle, invisible obstacles. People would not have any clue what you're dealing with. You've got to bury that, because like you said, we can't show that vulnerability, certainly during that period. So you're dealing with that internally on your own. You're carrying that load. Now that makes life challenging, but it also, practice makes perfect. I mean, in terms of resilience, you're like anything, you work a muscle, it gets bigger, it gets stronger. Well, the same thing is occurring having ADHD. So you're just able to overcome, challenge. And I think that training ground dealing with undiagnosed ADHD gives you that resilience later in life. Because the fact is, yeah, knocks coming, but boy, you've had millions of those knocks. So yeah, it will knock you down for a bit. You'll feel all the associated emotions, but I will know from experience and my history, I will pick myself up and I will try again.
But I guess that's a damn sight easier when you now understand yourself, and you can look back with a rationale and
maturity and perspective.
Absolutely, and
actually a completer version of yourself now than you've ever been.
Absolutely, right? And the diagnosis of who you are does really give you that ability to look back with 20/20 vision, doesn't it? As opposed to just continuing the struggle unknown. Taking it back to you for a second, Archie, you've got you're in a very caring relationship.
Yeah.
You're moving in together now.
Yeah, moved in. Yeah,
moved in together.
Congrats.
Yeah, it's a big step, isn't it? And you're at uni, full-time job, relationship. You've survived university without debt.
Yeah.
You've got this relationship, which is magnificent to see. What would have happened, or what would have been different if you didn't understand yourself and know your ADHD?
Well, I mean, first things first, I don't think I'd be even at university. I mean, thinking back to it then, my thoughts were potentially about trying to get into the world of work at the age of 16, doing apprenticeships. And I was going to say, and I think I would have robbed myself of a lot of opportunities if I'd done that, because I clearly was able to do my A-levels, I clearly was able to go to university. But I think, like I say, I'd be in a completely different life right now. I was going to say, I probably wouldn't have a job at this stage, probably. I'll be someone probably on benefits at this point, and which isn't where I want to be. And I'd probably be in a bit more of a depressive state, and which wouldn't have been good for my mental health at all. And I'd gone into a sort of a negative spiral, I think, all the way through because of that sort of constant self-doubt and lack of self-esteem. So I like I say, I don't really often think about where I would be now, and it's often not a nice place, I don't think, that I would be, but I'm grateful that I am where I am now, and doing what I'm able to do now. It's really nice, and I almost look at it as a positive that I am here where I am now. And I was going to say, I was lucky that I had that chance conversation where I was speaking with you. But like I say, if I hadn't had that conversation, I think it would be a dark place I'd be in right now. And I don't think it'd be a positive place either.
And there's a lot of people hopefully going to be watching this over the forthcoming months and years who are possibly still in that dark place. And I think I'm going to go back to a question you asked, which I don't think we've fully explored, is what advice to give to somebody who's perhaps now identifying they're in that, I'm going to come to both of you, in that dark place, thinking, yes, some of this resonates with me. What's the actual one single action you as people who've been through a process in life, what's the one piece you would say to them?
Don't be afraid to explore your options. I was going to say, don't be afraid of getting a diagnosis. Don't be afraid of starting treatment. Jump into it with a lot of excitement and joy. That's what I would suggest. And because there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and that there is hope out there for you. So I was going to say, explore it. Look to get your diagnosis. Look to get your treatment, and don't be afraid.
What about you, Nick?
Yeah, I would absolutely mirror that. I mean, let's take a real life example. And in fact, I can share my own real life example. It was a guest on this very show. By complete chance, we discovered it this morning. I was in Antarctica in 2019, climbing a mountain. He has ADHD himself. And it was actually him that said to me in a very short conversation, something had happened. He said, "Oh, I've got ADHD." He then looked at me and said, "So have you." That was the first time I'd ever thought, and I didn't really know what ADHD was. I thought it was the shaky kids at school, right? So I got home from that trip and Dr. Google, straight in, ADHD. I found some little online tests. Have I got ADHD tests? I'm not sure how good they are, but the needle on the barometer was pointing very much in the red to indicate that I did. To hear stories, I listened to stories of people that had ADHD, had gone through a diagnosis treatment protocol. And what I was discovering is actually ADHD is highly treatable. There is a happy ending here. If you're willing to do the work, you're willing to be vulnerable, to be brutally honest, to put your hand up and say, "I need help. I can't do this on my own." Because that was my story. I'd done it all on my own. No one even knew. But that was hard. That was hard. And it was a road to burnout as well. And to be able to say, yeah, explore it, show that vulnerability. And actually the journey, it's quite easy from that point on, as you were saying, and it's quite good fun, because what you're able to then recognize is, okay, I'm dealing with a problem, but there's a solution over there, and that's the journey to the solution. And once you get going, yeah, life gets better. It really does.
You turned it into another challenge.
Yeah.
With a purpose, which is to make yourself the best person you can be of you, right?
Absolutely.
And it needed someone else to point it out to you. And both, you ultimately, and then our mutual friend. And so another way of looking at it is, if you flip back to 15, 16 years old at school, both of you, and we remember at school, people came in to do an inspirational talk. So if you could have your version of yourselves now going back to the school, do you think you'd have listened? Do you think you'd have been inspired and actually had a trigger and gone, because that's what I feel like is happening here. And that message needs to get to kids younger in schools and go, that could be me. The revision, the outdoors, both of those resonate with me. I was just out on my bike and there was no mobile phones with it. So when I get home, my parents would be furious. They'd be worried. I'd look at them and think, I had no concept of that. I just needed to go and cycle and get it out of my system. So if someone was to come into your world at a younger age and kind of inspire you with that, do you think that would have worked?
Yeah, I think hugely for me, definitely. And I was going to say, I mean, I think the thing I resonate with the most is when someone tells me their story and it makes it real. Yeah. And I think that's something that would have been huge for me, thinking, actually, I can sort of resonate with that person. That person is someone I can look up to, and maybe I need to start this journey of my own. I think that would have been huge for me at that point.
Can I ask one question? Because I think we're going to wrap up for time. Do you feel any shame for having ADHD?
No, I feel no shame for saying I have ADHD. However, that is a misleading answer. Do I feel shame because I have ADHD? Yeah, bucket loads. And there can be a lot of shame associated, not by saying I've got ADHD, but all the other components, what ADHD really means, what it's like having ADHD on an emotional level, not being able to do things, letting people down. Yeah, all the associated complications and implications of having ADHD, absolutely. And that was where that diagnosis for me was so powerful, because it allowed me to forgive myself for all the things, people I'd let down when I'd really done my best. I had no intention of letting them down, but you know the condition itself, untreated, undiagnosed, yeah, you're not going to have a perfect linear life, that's for sure.
That's powerful.
It is, isn't it? And what about for you, Arch?
I was going to say, I'd almost mirror what Nick's just said, in the sense that I don't feel ashamed to say I have ADHD. I'm proud I have ADHD. It's what makes me me. However, like Nick says, I'd feel shame as a result of some of the actions that I've taken as a result of my ADHD. And like you say, it's about looking back and forgiving yourself. That's a hugely powerful thing that's really resonated with me, is being able to forgive yourself. And like I say, I don't feel shame for having ADHD. I feel shame as a result of the ADHD.
Yeah.
Do you know what that's done for me? And I know we need to wrap up. Is that's almost put the shame on the people that have misunderstood their actions.
Absolutely.
And anyone behaving in a certain way, because society's making people feel like they are behaving a certain way that's wrong and offending them and so on, when they didn't mean to.
Absolutely. Nick, as always, absolute superstar, brand ambassador for ADHD and ADHD 360, and rightly so. Good luck on your next couple of adventures. I know we're going to be in touch all through them. Archie, you're getting to the final. As Nick's going up and getting to the top of the world, you're literally at the same time scale going to the top of your world with you finishing your degree. And I know you're going to nail it. You're going to punch it out the park. But hugely proud of both of you. Proud to be associated with you. Well done.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.